Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're going to stay with the X-Men 97 stuff, and this time we're going to talk about the comic book. This is issue number 1. This is a 4-issue limited series that I believe, because of the events that happened in the book, I believe it is supposed to be a sequel. I didn't really read into that as far as anybody saying that specifically, but that's what I assumed just by reading it. The reason why is like Storm's hair. She doesn't have the mohawk yet. She gets the new look in this first issue. Jean Grey just discovers she's pregnant. Spoiler alert. And not just the comic, but the show as well. If you haven't seen either one yet, I would at least go see the show. Or at least just watch the show on Disney Plus. If you haven't read the comic, maybe you're not going to. You know, maybe you're just going to enjoy the show, you're not into comics. But if you're into comics and you are enjoying the show and you're a big X-Men fan, specifically if you're an X-Men fan of the 90s, you might want to pick this up. I'll get into it and I'll go over. I've got a CBR of it and we'll go over it page by page. Well, not page by page, but for the most part, I don't want to, I'm not going to read it, in the video either. I'm just going to kind of give you my responses to certain things. One thing that happens in the comic, and it has to do with Rogue and her mohawk, and I want to draw I want to show the difference between the way that originally was handled in the Uncanny X-Men comic book with Kitty Pryde, as opposed to now. Obviously, Jubilee being the de facto Kitty Pryde. I still don't know why that is. I mean, I know Jubilee's popular, and I guess you can't have two young teen girls in the same comic book or the same show, and they're essentially the same character. So, Jubilee's basically an updated version of Kitty Pryde. That's kind of sad because the Kitty Pryde character is a great character, and I think it's kind of lost, and maybe the crowd, maybe like I said, I guess the millennials who enjoyed the show when they were a kid, maybe that Kitty Pryde was kind of before their time. I just find it to be sad, but I'll get into that in the video. But I do have the variant again. I kind of wish I had the regular cover. I told my guy at the comic book shop, I said, I'm not into variants. I don't care about variants. I hate variants. Let's just put it that way. And but I understand why Marvel uses them, is to prop up their sales numbers by putting out these variants, especially when they know it's going to be a lean. If you notice it, when it's a lean month, or it's a lean couple of weeks, or a lean week, that's when the variants really start coming out in full force. And of course, with issues like number 1s, this is just a limited series, they're just going to lean heavily on the variants. Like I said, maybe this is all he got, and I'm assuming, because I looked at his stand, and I saw it was the same comic, so I don't think he got the regular version. As you can see, it says variant right there in the corner. But I don't know what issue number 2. I don't know what I'm going to get with that one either. So whatever. Like I said, I've got the CBR here pulled up of it, which has the regular cover, as you'll see. So let's jump into that. So the artwork's fine. I'm going to get into the artist too. I'm also going to get into a issue that I personally take grievance with the comic book industry, specifically, the main publishers, and specifically Marvel. But I'll get to that just shortly here when we look at the credits page. But looking at the cover, the art's fine. I'm not a huge fan of the cartoony-ish style, but I guess it's fine. I mean, it's all the X-Men jumping at you, and it's supposed to be somewhat simplistic or somewhat evocative of the animation style, which in the show, the animation style is fine. I don't really have a problem with. I mean, the animation in the show and the way they draw the characters, I have no issue with. I think it looks fine. It does exactly what it has to do, and I think that, Would it be, if I did it, would I do it differently? Yeah, probably, but not much differently. So again, me being a comic book artist, I don't have a lot of grievances with the art. And the same thing goes for this comic. I don't really have any issues with the art at all. There's a few things I would kind of like to see different, but that's about it. Otherwise, the art's fine. So let's get into the credits page. So as you can see, you get a little blurb up here. Steve Fox, I guess it's Fox, how you pronounce that. He's the writer. I don't know much about him at all. I haven't really researched him. I don't know what his bibliography is. His name doesn't jump out at me, so I couldn't tell you. And again, remember, I've kind of been away from. I mean, I've checked in on on modern comics for the last 20 years. I can't say that. I was pretty into comics in the aughts, so I'd say maybe in the last 15 years. But so people who've come and gone, I know a few of them, but not a lot. My problem here with Marvel and this whole thing is with the artist. Now, the Selva Espin, I have nothing against the guy. I don't really know who he is. I did a little bit of research on it, and my conclusion kind of stands. But I mean, his art's fine. I know I have nothing against people's artwork. I think it's fine. And this guy is pretty much the target audience for this. He's 41, I believe. So he's born in 82. That's like the second year millennial. Just 2 years removed from the last year Gen X. So, and I'm Gen X. So, and I was born in 73. So he's about relatively 10 years younger than me, and that makes perfect sense. He is the target audience of the people that would like the show, because like I said, when the show was on in the 90s, you were probably, I was in my 20s. These people would be in their, late adolescent, early teens. But, so the guy's from Spain, right? I don't think he's necessarily from Barcelona, although I think they said he moved to Barcelona. And here's my problem with that. I have nothing against Spanish artists, Italian artists, artists from any country. I don't really care where they're from. That doesn't really give me. I don't have any problem with their art. Like I said, I think there's a lot of Spanish artists that I really like a lot, especially like that Spanish Italian kind of style. This guy doesn't necessarily do that style, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of artists like that I like. Now the thing is, this seems to be at first value, you would think to yourself, oh, this is a woke thing. They keep hiring all these diversity hires. That is totally, absolutely not the case when I think it comes to situations like this. I think it's just an added benefit that it kind of follows, the perceived agenda that we've got someone, of color or somebody who's not, a white American dude, right? So, but that's not why they've hired this guy. They've hired this guy, as they've done with a lot of these people, especially Spanish artists, Italian artists. Let's just take Spain for an example. We'll narrow it down to there. I looked up, and I was curious. What is the average, the base average salary of someone in the entire country of Spain? And they put it about $27,000 to $30,000 ish, right in that ballpark. Let's just say 30. Let's just be easy. $30,000 is the average salary, and that's a good salary, And you also got to think that the cost of living in Spain is probably going to be less than it is in the United States. So, and if somebody can work remotely, meaning work from Spain, they don't have to work in the United States and live in the United States cost of living, and of course specifically live in New York or New York City or even the Bronx or whatever, because it's the highest cost of living in the entire country. It's astronomical. Somebody living in New York just to get by, I would say, and that's like living paycheck to paycheck, or just getting by and having an okay life, is like 100,000 plus, right around 100,000. To be a middle class in New York City, you'd have to make $300,000 a year. It's a far cry from living in Spain with the average salary. Now, the average salary in the United States, somebody who makes, is $60,000. So it's double the average salary of Spain. And that person couldn't afford, who's making $60,000. We're just hypothetically saying we're going to pay our comic book artist the average United States salary, right? So $60,000 in Bay City is a lot of money. I would even argue, say, somebody who makes $30,000 in Bay City can get by and live pretty good, right? So if you take all of that into thought, Marvel just keeps getting these people who live in countries like Spain, who, there's a lot of comic book fans there, a lot of comic book artists, people that are inspired to do that, as this guy did. I think his dad was a big comic book fan, and he liked to draw, so it was kind of a thing that, in his life, that was cultivated. And so what I'm saying is a lot of European countries, especially Spain, Italy, France, obviously the UK, a lot of those countries are big fans of, say, Western-style comic books. But the thing is, it's just like, that's who they keep hiring. And that's like, I guess economically, as a business, that makes sense. If we can hire somebody for $30,000 a year, right? Although we'd have to pay the same person $60,000 a year here in the United States, let alone if they lived in New York and had to come to the office and work, we couldn't afford to pay them what they would need to survive. So if you look at basic economics, it makes complete sense. So let's hire people who obviously want to work for our company and they live in another country where the cost of living is less than the United States, and the average salary is half the average salary in the United States. Like I said, these are all ballparks, and these are all hypotheticals as far as I don't know. Marvel might not even. Marvel, I know they pay more to certain people, but I'm taking the average comic book artist, and I would probably put this guy probably as an average comic book artist working for Marvel. He's been there for a few years. I read some of his bio, but I would still put him at, maybe average plus. So let's just say they gave him a bump up and they gave him $35,000 a year American in Barcelona. He's doing great, right? He's loving life. It's a win-win for him. It's a win-win for Marvel. But the problem is it's not a win-win for, and like I said, I have no aspirations to work for Marvel. I love Marvel Comics, and I always have. But I knew back right around in the 90s, I knew in the early 90s that I did not want to work for Marvel or DC because I knew what it involved. And I had professionals tell me, who did work for the company at cons, people said, hey, you might want to self-publish or work on your own stuff, which is exactly what I do. So I'm not looking at it from my point of view because, like I said, I don't want a job with Marvel. But if somebody who can work, there are people who do, and the shame is, if they paid them the same price, the same wage that they paid, let's say the $30,000 they would pay somebody in another country, right, to do the same amount of work. I don't think they could get by. I don't think they would. Unless they're obviously if they're young, But that guy in Spain, he's 41, so he's not young. But if a 20-year-old, you could pay him $30,000 out of the get-go because he's going to make $20,000. He's going to make $20,000 or $30,000 probably, working at McDonald's now with all the minimum wage. Although McDonald's is hurting, but anyways, for that reason. So I just wanted to get into that, just to kind of show you where I am with that. And the thing is, like I said, I don't have anything wrong with people from other countries doing the art, right? If they can do the job, that's fine. And if they want to do the job, that's fine. If they're happy, and the company's happy, and the fans are happy, it just rubs me the wrong way. And I kind of just, it's just one of those things that I personally take issue with it. But it is what it is, I guess, right? At the end of the day, I guess you can't complain. You can complain, which I am, but, it falls on deaf ears. Let's get back into the comic here. So, let's get into the actual story. So it starts out, and here's a good look at the art too. It starts out basically I'm not going to, spoiler alert, but I'm not going to get super into it. They're in the danger room, obviously. They're not fighting Magneto. They're doing the typical danger, they're opening with a typical danger room training sequence. And then, they show up with the, so here are the X-Men. As you notice, Storm still has her longer hair. And then, they get tossed around a little bit. And then, of course, Wolverine and Cyclops don't see eye to eye. And I think Wolverine makes the joke there. He's like, oh, Cyclops is like, do you have a problem with my leadership, Wolverine? It's like, he says, yeah, you're just now figuring that out, Four Eyes. They're typical class. Here's the thing about that. Here's the thing about this. What I find kind of weird is, if this comic is for a new set of fans, right? Then I guess they're kind of reiterating a lot of this stuff, right? And I know back in the day, in the 80s, yes, Chris Claremont would tell you that Wolverine has adamantium claws for the 1000th time. Every issue he has in his narration, he'll basically keep reiterating the same information over and over and over again. I feel that he kind of graduated from that for the most part towards the end of his tenure, and then into the 90s and stuff. I wasn't really a big reader of the X-Men in most of the 90s, so I couldn't tell you if the new writers did that or not. I don't think Jim Lee did in the Jim Lee's stuff, which wasn't a lot. But it's a cliche at this point, and I don't know. It's just I think that the whole Scott and Wolverine. I don't know. I just wish they would kind of move past that and go on to something else. They kind of have in some right with the whole mutant thing, and now mutants are kind of accepted, so they're kind of moving on from that. But there's like this so basic thing, and like I said, opening the comic with the Danger Room sequence seems to be a little X-Men cliche at this point, and so does the Wolverine and Scott Summers, arguing over leadership. And as Storm points out, they're misdirected anger, meaning that that's not really what they're mad about. They're mad because they both they're both, in love with Jean Grey, and of course they're jealous of each other, although Scott's technically her husband at this point. They don't say that he's married, though, which is kind of weird, because they say he's married in the show. They say that they got married. In this comic, a spoiler alert, is Jean's going to find out she's pregnant. So this is a prequel to the show, but again, they don't mention, at least as of yet, the first issue, that they're married. Maybe they're going to get married in the end of the 4th issue, and that's why it carries over into I don't know yet. This is only the first issue. I can't say for certain. I did like the reporter. She shows up in the newest TV show. That was kind of neat. Dazzler gets kidnapped by the Friends of Humanity, and which of course they show up in the cartoon. Yes, it's called a cartoon, and they kind of have their banter, whatever. Scott, what's her face? They're gonna go out on a mission. Jean wants to stay behind. Her stomach's not feeling well. Obviously, she's having issues. Then they flash over to Rogue and Gambit. I like the little dig there with Gambit, and and he holds up her '80s costume, the one with the double belt and the the crop top that she wears over the black suit. Which again, I said this a million times, I like Rogue in the all-black bodysuit. I think that's so cool. And then whatever, accent colors they throw over top, it's nice. I'm not a fan of the green and yellow outfit. It's too 90s, it's too Jim Lee for my taste. But again, this is supposed to be for the people who are 10 years younger than me, and that is their Rogue. So I guess there's enough said on that one. So Storm tells them that they've got an issue close by when the other ones arrive, which I find the storytelling here is odd. Because it's like, okay, so they're going to go rescue Dazzler, but Beast wants to stay behind, Jean stays behind. I'm assuming Storm goes with the other X-Men, but then Storm is on the horn here to tell them that there's a threat nearby, and then you assume, is it the same threat? And then when you get there, you see Rogue's already busting up chops with these guys before the other team's there. Storm was just talking about, team cohesion and following strategy plans laid out by Scott, yet this is all disjointed. I find that bad storytelling. It just comes off weird, and then they show up and it's just like, okay, well, it's like, okay, well, Rogue was already beating up guys. It's like, okay, so then they're going to show up. Now they're going to take on and find and rescue Dazzler. I just find that whole sequence between getting Rogue and Gambit, while they're shopping, and telling them there's an alert. It's Storm who's telling them, but then you assume Storm came with them on the jet, so she didn't say, like, hey, we're on our way, we're coming to help, meet us there. It's just, I find that weird. Where did she? Let's see. Rogue, Gambit, there is a mutant in distress near you, so Dazzler. Your location, follow the coordinates I'm sending you. So they do, and obviously they get that first, and then Scott makes the comment here, we should still have the element of surprise, which means we can get in and out before the frenzy might even know we're here. Not to burst your bubble, Psych, but that may not be an option. So they've again, maybe Storm could have told them, hey, wait for us so we get the elements. I find it bad storytelling. So then we get into this. So they save her. And of course, What's-Her-Face shows up. Valerie Cooper shows up. And then there's this weird hint that this guy here is, I'm assuming that's What's-His-Face, who becomes, spoiler alert, who becomes the executioner. And then he said he's going to get this guy out, or whatever, get these guys out. And then, of course, Wolverine sniffs him, can't place who he is, blah, blah, blah. That head is not drawn well. They come back. Scott does the typical... Here's the thing I don't understand between and I never have understood this between the relationship between Scott and Jean. If Scott is that much of a... It's not just that he's a douchebag, but he's just of a dumbass, or kind of like, that driven with the team and doesn't seem to, be very responsive. And so why does she like him? I never understood, why does she like him? Obviously she likes Wolverine too. Wolverine likes her. He seems to be a little bit, he can be abrasive, but he seems to be a lot more sympathetic to her needs. It seems like there's a lot of the ex-dudes that seem like they'd be better catches than some Scott Summers. I mean, is it just she just likes the way he looks? It's pretty superficial. But yeah, I don't understand why, she likes the guy. But anyways, like I said, she's like, she wants to tell him about the pregnancy, and he's too, driven by the team or whatever. Maybe you should have had a child with them then. How about that? Of course, we know who this is, and we know what's going to happen here, but regardless. Okay, now here's the thing. So this is when Rogue reveals her new look, right, to Jubilee. Now, I'm going to flip over real quick to this comic, and specifically 173. This is 1983, and after Rogue and Wolverine do their Dugaroo at the old in Japan, when they come back, right? Here they're all standing there. Here is actually they're in Japan. Here is Kitty Pryde. She's like, look up at the sky. It's storm. Hello, kitten. My apologies for being late. She's changed her look, right? Your clothes, your hair. What have you done? She's obviously distraught, right? A new look. Do you like it? How could you? And she's all mad about it, right? And she's like, Kitty. And he's like, it's a rather striking change, Aurora. Why did you do it? I had my reasons, Scott. I'm not allowed. Am I not allowed? Goddess. I beg your pardon. I didn't mean. My fault. I should apologize. I've realized the effect of Madeline. Blah, 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 blah. I like that better because there's drama there, right? And it's a sudden, abrupt change, and obviously it throws Kitty off, and she gets kind of, she feels like, Storm's, a different person, or I don't even know what she's supposed to be really feeling there. I guess she's just angry about it, and later it comes on in the rest of the comic. But going back to this one. This is just like, oh, hey, cool punk rock outfit. Okay, right? And then she says this weird thing. It's like, is that not Dazzler's vibe? I wouldn't want to appear out of step with the culture. What? Out of step with the culture? What do you mean? I mean, she doesn't want to... You're out of... because it's Dazzler's vibe? Because she's a singer? She's a pop star? How is that a punk rock pop star? Because she's not? It'd be like saying, like, oh, I got a mohawk because I wanted to look like the Sex Pistols. I don't want to offend Taylor Swift and ruin her vibe. That's an asinine statement. It doesn't make any sense. Same thing with here. It's just like, okay, because Dazzler's got short hair and a bandana? She's punk? But she's not punk? And is Jubilee into punk rock? Did she ever establish that? She's got shorter hair? I don't know. It's just, I think it's a lot of writers or people who know about a lot of the X-Men lore and just kind of like jumbled up into this weird kind of cacophony of just like story trope beat things that just kind of pop out. I don't know. I don't get that. Obviously that suit's not very punk rock. That's not the leather outfit that she's wearing. And of course they ruin that for in the cartoon, when she shows up briefly, like literally briefly with it, and suddenly she's out of that costume and into the potato sack in that episode with the life death. It's just like, okay, what do you... I guess with the nod with this outfit in here, back to Rogue's outfit, the Gambit holds up, it's just like, not nudge, nudge, wink, wink, know what I mean, saying to, like, us older fans, but younger fans who obviously is their target demographic, they want to... I don't know. I find it goofy. I just find it goofy, and I find it weird storytelling. I don't mind making a self-referential joke, or poking fun at something, I think, but it just, they're taking this, like, way too, it's speaking of it like, I don't know, they're acting, like, serious about it, and they're like, you're not making any sense. It's like, okay, do you like it, Jubilee? Oh, it's totally punk rock. The other thing that's weird about that is, in the 90s, did 90s kids say totally a lot? Like Valley Girls from like the early 80s in California? And they're not in California, they're in upstate New York. And Jubilee apparently was from upstate New York. They found her at a mall, but she's totally talking like she's from the Valley in 1981. Okay. I mean, I was in my 20s you know, obviously I graduated high school in 1991. I don't remember girls ever saying totally in that year. And I would assume if the say 17, 18-year-olds were saying that, I'm sure in 1991 that the 9 and 10-year-old girls weren't talking like that. I don't. Okay, and then the whole punk rock look. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but just a lot of that just sounds off to me. So, again, it's not really taking much away from the story, but for me personally it is. And again, these are all my grievances here, are all my personal issues with it. And it might not be the, you know, I might, like I said, I might be reading too much into it. Maybe I'm obsessing over little details that most people just aren't going to really, they're just going to gloss over, so whatever. But I don't know, I just find that weird. And that's why I'm making these videos. I want to tell you that stuff, to kind of make you aware of that idea, or the, you know, that point of view. So again, we go back to the story here. You know, they've got to do something. Storm senses, she knows something's up with Jean Grey, and then they have their little heartfelt talk with their sisters on the rooftop here. That's fine. You know, Wolverine and Psyche are at it again, arguing in the danger room, blah blah blah. Then they come to fisticuffs or Cyclops optic blasticuffs. It's just like, okay. And then you know, Beast is on the horn with McTaggart, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "Oh, they're fighting again," kind of thing, right? But now, I guess Storm was supposed to go to the Dazzler concert, but she didn't go, so she told what's his face, Bishop, to take her. But then Storm and Rogue and Gambit join along. Okay, and then all right, and then there's Dazzler wearing the same. It's like you're wearing the same outfit on stage that you were just got kidnapped in. Wouldn't you think she'd put on like a stage costume or something, or stage clothes? She did that in the comic back in the day. She'd always put on like a stage dress or whatever, and then she'd, you know, go into a regular costume after that. It's kind of weird. And then there's these guys, which are like I can't remember what they call them, the Nasty Boys. I don't recall the Nasty Boys. I'm assuming they're probably from the original cartoon. I don't really know them all that well. And then they end up attacking at this concert, and then they fight them off, blah, blah, blah. And then we go back, and then Jean finally tells Scott that she's pregnant. Wolverine overhears it, and he's kind of distraught about the situation. And then the Nasty Boys go back, and then Sinister's there, and then Sinister's like, "Why did you attack?" Yeah, why did you attack them at the concert? You know, it's just like, okay, because they're idiots. Okay, so why are you employing idiots? And then Sinister gets mad and zaps them, blah blah blah, and says, "I need a new what? You need a new set of idiots? You need the Marauders? So are you leading up to? Are you gonna put another?" A classic X-Men crossover out of sequence and out of place by doing a mutant massacre. I don't know. I found that weird. So that's the cover. I don't even know if I'm gonna get that cover, but that's the next issue 2. I think issue 2 just came out this week, but I don't have. I'll pick mine up this weekend. So. Do I suggest it? I suggest it in the fact that I would like to see comics continue. Despite, there's a lot of people that just want to see it burn, and they have issues with modern comics. Are modern comics woke? Some of them are, some of them aren't. Are modern comics written poorly? Some of them are, some of them aren't. I mean, they're comic books, right, at the end of the day. And you can wage all of the same. I mean, obviously back in the 80s or even in the 90s, which is this was supposed to be more emulating, were there woke things going on then? Maybe not as heavy-handedly, but I didn't really find much really woke in this. I find this just to be, if anything, I find this to be a little cliche. Does it set up the cartoon? Sure, but that implies that you're gonna, here's the thing is, if this came out, if this is a 4-issue limited series, the first issue came out after the first 2 episodes aired. What I would have done is I would have had all 4 issues come out as like a precursor, like a warm-up. And you could have also gauged to see on the sales on this, but I guess that's not really, and they don't really care about that. They're going to go with the show anyways. The show obviously takes a lot longer to produce, so it was in the works probably longer, but I think now you're reading this, you're going to read this as the show's going on, because I think the 4th issue will be out by the time the last 10th issue will be out, maybe a month after, whatever, but, so, you see what I'm saying? I find it just a little off there. I'm glad they didn't just do an adaptation of the cartoon, although maybe that would have been fine. But again, being that this is only a 4-issue limited series, obviously they want to do like a prequel up to the show, so then we're going to get the show. So if the show, and I think they've already signed on for a second, I think they're already working on a second season, I think already. And then are we going to get a second comic book series? Maybe we'll get something that'll bridge the gap in between the 2 seasons, and then it should come out in the off time. That would be nice. I don't know. But it's more X-Men content to take in. Like I said, again, this is $5 for this. It's $4.99 for this issue. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember how many pages it is. It's 34 pages. So it's a longer running comic. Or 33 if you want to count the cover as a page. Or 32 if you want to count the inside title sheet as not a page. So it's longer than regular comics, so they're going to get an extra $1 for it. I'm assuming all 4 issues are going to be like that, but this is kind of false. This would be considered a premium format book in regards to the regular publication, so it's pricey, but $5, I guess it's not terrible. And what can you really get for $5 anymore? You can't even get a double quarter or a single quarter pounder with cheese anymore at McDonald's. That's going to cost you $6. So it's kind of odd. Again, people's and go back to that. If the United States, if the average salary in the United States was $60,000, again, $60,000 in Bay City is quite a bit of money. You could afford a house in Bay City. You could afford a car. You could afford, you probably could even afford to, have a stay-at-home significant other, whoever that may be, and 2 children, right? At $60,000 a year in Bay City, I'd say you'd be fine. You're not going to be buying a fancy car. You're going to be buying a conservative car. Again, you're not going to buy a crazy house. You're probably just going to buy an average house for Bay City, which the average houses around here go for about I know my ex-wife just bought a new house a couple of years ago, or I think right pre-pandemic. I think she paid It's a 4-bedroom, 2-story house, older house with a backyard, 2-car garage, nice big porch. I think she paid $90 for it. I think her old house. I don't know what she got for her old house. But the average house, if that size house for a family in Bay City, say $90,000, you could buy a $100,000. I'd say even a $150,000 house on a salary of $60,000 without too much of an issue. You probably have 2 cars, maybe not Corvettes, or Porsches or BMWs, but you could probably have an SUV like a Honda or something, or a Toyota, or even a Kia or something like that. I like the Kias. And you maybe having a secondary car, maybe whatever. You could afford that. A 25. You could afford two $25,000 vehicles and $100,000 or $150,000 house, and have two kids, and you probably can live pretty comfortably. And say both, and that's with one parent, staying home to take care of the kids, and then maybe working part time, and maybe bring in another $25,000 a month, a year, and now or at least another 20,000. So now you're up to 80,000 combined income. You can do that in Bay City. And Bay City's not the greatest place in the world, but it's not bad either if you want to put up with Michigan winters. It's beautiful in the summer, and you're, like I said, you're a hop, skip, and a jump from almost all the nice, resort areas. So, and you're close to Detroit if you want to go down to Detroit. Close to Chicago, close to Toronto. We're talking 4.5, 5 hour drives to either one of those two major cities. So you're not that far away from everything. Just it does suck here for about 3 months in the winter, which we're just coming out of now. And the winter this year wasn't that bad at all. But barring all of that, I guess it was a long way of saying, $5 on a comic book or $6 on a quarter pounder with cheese. Well, if you're making $20 an hour, $25 an hour, which is not $60,000 a year, that's more like $30,000 a year. What I bring in doing comic books for myself, I bring in just under that, just under 30,000. So that shows you where my income level's at. I have one kid. I'm divorced. I live in an apartment. I don't have a working vehicle for the last year and a half. So essentially, I have no vehicle, and I can get by pretty well. Barring no major catastrophes happen, I can get by pretty decently on that. So what I'm saying is, if that's the average income in the United States, right? You're not living in New York with $60,000 a year. You're probably not even going to live in some of the more affluent areas, like down in Rochester, my hometown, right? It's pretty expensive there. Houses go for about $500,000. Cars are about the same price, but it seems like everybody's got to have, a high-end car down there. So, maybe you got to make $100,000 plus to live in Rochester. But these places out in the, out in the sticks, and it's really, we got a big city right downtown. I mean, I get on my bike in 15 minutes, I'm downtown to the waterfront, and I can go down there. So, again, it's a long-winded story to tell you. $5 for a comic, it's a little pricey, but not astronomical. I mean, I think it's a cheap form of entertainment. And if you get more out of it, I mean, if you're just a reader of comics, you're going to blow through it in 15 minutes. It's like, I just spent $5 for 15 minutes worth of entertainment, unless it really knocked my socks off and just kind of meh. But, if you like to draw, one thing I think with comic books, and I'm going to say this without going too long here, comic books is what, outside of watching like a TV show or a movie, comic books, I think, are a great medium for fans to enjoy story who are also like to draw. So if you like to draw and you like to look at art, you have an appreciation for art, and you like to draw, I think comic books are good for that person. I think there are people, obviously, that read comic books avidly, but they're not artists per se. Maybe they're writers, and I guess in that regard you can kind of appreciate it as well, but not as much so if you're an artist. So like I said, if you spend $5 on a comic book and you read it, and you're looking at the artwork and you're like, oh, I would like to draw that. I like to draw those characters. I think you're getting more value out of the comic book than just simply a 15-minute read. And of course, there's the collector ability. I'm not saying these are going to be worth anything for a long time, but I mean, you can have a collection of comic books to say, I have a collection of comic books. So, I don't know. So I hear a lot of talk about the industry failing. I hear a lot of talk about a lot of things about it. But at the end of the day, I love comic books. And, you know, regardless of my attitude towards modern comics as opposed to classic comics, I have a tendency to like classic comics better. But, you know, we're willing to give new comics a fair shake, which I have kind of been. Just nothing really has really resonated with me or caught on to me. And so, but recently, like I said, I'm enjoying the new She-Hulk series. I enjoy the new Spider-Woman series. So far, those are the only two I subscribe to. I keep looking at the other ones, seeing if I want to get involved in like the X-Men or the Avengers. But right now, I'm just kind of eh. Although I'm getting little things like this, so there's little limited series and stuff I don't mind picking up. But all right, I'm gonna let you guys go here. Remember, like and subscribe if you like the stuff, and again, give me your thoughts on everything. Did you like? Are you enjoying the show? Do you have the comic? Are you enjoying the comic? That type of thing. Are you interested in getting the comic? All of that stuff. Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I am going to catch you on the next one. So, take it easy. All right, bye-bye.